Picture this, a fire, British troops closing in, and you're racing to save America's most important documents. What would you grab? The Declaration of Independence. The Constitution, maybe?
Oh, what a thought.
Right. Those clerks during the War of 1812 faced quite the dilemma.
Talk about pressure.
Today, we're diving into how the keepers of our history, the U.S. National Archives, are using technology to make sure those stories and more are accessible to all.
And we've got a fascinating guide for this deep dive. Pamela Wright, the Chief Innovation Officer at NARA, brings such a unique perspective.
What's so striking is how her journey from a Montana ranch to the halls of NARA influences her whole approach.
Right. And it's not just about where she's from, but how her work ensures that everyone, no matter their zip code, can connect with these documents.
Because, let's face it, when you think National Archives, it can be, well, a little intimidating.
Absolutely. Guarded buildings, strict rules, it can feel like a real fortress of knowledge.
Pamela's even said she felt that way on her first visit. Yeah, and that's what makes her work so compelling. She's not just digitizing documents, she's making a statement, history. It belongs to everyone.
It's about making the country more equitable.
Exactly. Not just about convenience.
This shift to open access, it's changing the culture at the National Archives. Like with the Citizen Archivist program. Now anyone can get involved.
The Citizen Archivist program sounds like a superhero team. What is it?
Well, they do ask for cursive superpowers.
Oh.
But really, it lets anyone from all walks of life help preserve these records and make them accessible. Imagine transcribing faded handwritten documents from your own living room, helping researchers, history buffs.
Crowdsourcing history.
You got it. The impact is huge. Millions of transcribed pages, photos tagged and searchable, documents scanned and put online, like opening a window to the past.
And in millions of documents, there are bound to be incredible stories, any that stand out.
Oh, absolutely. One fascinating project is digitizing pension records, particularly for the Buffalo Soldiers and Indian Scouts.
Who served in the U.S. Army after the Civil War.
Right. It gives you a glimpse into this complex and often overlooked chapter of American history.
Yeah, I can see how those records could really challenge our understanding of the time.
Absolutely.
It really puts things in perspective, right?
Yeah.
Everyday lives going on, even during major historical events.
Yeah, it's like these hidden layers of history within the history books.
Right.
And sometimes you find them in the most unexpected places. Imagine stumbling on your grandparents' marriage records and bam, they eloped to Indiana from Ohio just to avoid stricter laws.
Sounds like a movie plot.
I know, right? Makes you wonder, what were those conversations like? What made them decide that?
And reminds you that history's full of relatable moments.
Totally.
Just everyday people figuring things out just like us.
Exactly. And those small personal choices, they often reflect bigger cultural shifts.
Oh, absolutely.
Like eloping to Indiana, that says something about changing attitudes toward marriage back then.
Fascinating how it all connects.
It is. But these records aren't always, happy discoveries. They can challenge assumptions, too.
Oh, not just heartwarming anecdotes then.
Not always. Sometimes they reveal tough truths, make you question what you thought you knew. Like Sarah Vowell, who wrote the article we're looking at, she started digging into her family history using the 1950 census.
Oh, wow. What'd she find?
Well, her dad was listed as an 8-year-old in Oklahoma.
Wow.
Which is interesting on its own, but it's the stuff about her mom's side that really made her think. Her grandfather, Cicero, was listed as white in that census, but in the 1941, he was Indian.
That's a huge difference. How does that even happen? Makes you wonder about the accuracy of it all.
Right. It highlights how important critical thinking is when we deal with historical documents.
I mean, we have to remember the context, right?
Exactly.
The biases of the time, all of it.
These records, they give us a glimpse, but not always the full picture. We got to remember that.
So how do we reconcile that? Learn and acknowledge the limitations at the same time.
That's the core of studying history, right? Approaching these records knowing they offer a glimpse, but not always the whole truth.
It's like a conversation, almost.
Right.
With history itself,
Mm-hmm.
always questioning, reinterpreting.
And sometimes that conversation, it changes your whole perspective. Like Val, she thought of her grandfather as this gloomy, drunk family stories, But the 1940 census, it said his occupation was worker on a WPA road crew.
WPA, the Works Progress Administration.
Mm,
from the Great Depression.
that's the one.
Wow.
And just like that, her whole view of him shifted.
Yeah.
Showed he was trying to provide for his family during incredibly hard times.
Powerful. Everyone's got a story, right? Full of complexities we might not know about.
And that's the power of these records. They don't just inform, they transform how we see the past, the people who came before.
Seeing beyond the labels to the messiness of it all.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the humanity in these records, appreciating the nuances.
Yeah.
And speaking of tangible connections to the past.
Tangible connections. You mean like actually holding these pieces of history?
Exactly. There's something about that physical connection.
Well,
It's
absolutely.
one thing to read about the Constitution, but to imagine the Founding Fathers signing that very document.
Gives me chills just thinking about it.
Right. And that brings us to the very first law passed by Congress after the Constitution was ratified.
Okay.
It might seem kind of mundane at first, but it speaks volumes about this tangible connection we're talking about.
Right. You've got me intrigued. What was this first law?
An act to regulate the time and manner of administering certain oaths.
Mm.
Basically, it set up how government officials would swear their allegiance to the Constitution.
So that whole thing, swearing an oath on the Constitution.
That started right there.
Wow.
And it's still going on. Every president, every member of Congress, every judge takes a similar oath, pledging to uphold the Constitution.
It's a good reminder, isn't it, that these documents, they're not just relics from the past. They're guiding our government even now.
Exactly. And it's a responsibility Pamela Wright takes very seriously. She talks about how her own oath, when she joined the National Archives, it was a huge moment for her.
She sees her work as critical to upholding those principles, doesn't she?
Absolutely. Transparency, protecting our history, making sure everyone can access it, it's fundamental to a healthy democracy.
It's not just about the past, then. It's about how it impacts us now and in the future.
That's what makes this whole thing, this deep dive, so fascinating. We're connecting with those who came before, learning from them, realizing we're all part of this ongoing story.
And we have responsibility, don't we, to help shape that story for the future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's a lot to process,
Yeah.
in a good way. And if you're as captivated as I am, check out the National Archives website.
You never know what you might find.
You might even uncover a piece of your own history.
Until next time, keep exploring.